Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/entitled parents for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Night Pro 26. I work and used to send money to my parents. Now that I have shifted to pay my father's credit card bills, Dad is faking these bills to get more money from me. I feel cheated. What to do? So I started being sus when their expenses suddenly shot up, after I stopped sending money directly and started paying their credit card bills. He's the kind of person who spends money very wisely, so this was quite unusual for me. I kinda confronted him, asked about how the spending is so high, even when you're not traveling anywhere. One day, I went home and checked his phone for the statement. There were multiple office-related transactions, for which he's getting money from his office and as well as me. What should I do? Should I ignore, thinking he's saving for my marriage or something, or should I action on it? If yes, then what? Edit. Thank you so much for all your responses. I have now made up my mind to send a fixed amount instead of paying for the bills. The reason I can't stop sending money is because in the past he has spent around more than 60 to 70% of his earnings only on my education, needs and wants, so I just want to give him back a comfortable life. Thank you all. Well, OP already has their solution, so I'm just gonna throw this right back to the audience here. If you found yourself in a position where you were paying back your parents for, a previous, education or other expenses they assisted with, and you found out that they were essentially, in a sense, faking bills to get more money out of you, or even scamming you in a sense, how would you react and how would you feel? Would you just continue paying it anyways in a hope that it gets it paid off faster? Or would you confront them about it? Or perhaps even taking OP's solution and just beginning to pay them a fixed rate instead. Because unfortunately, with the sounds of it, OP's in a situation where he can't just cold turkey cut them off from payments, which is definitely an unfortunate and sticky situation to find yourself in. Couch Potato San. Entitled mother tried to sue me for drugging her child. I, 19 female, am a server at a restaurant with a bar in it. The bar side of the restaurant is, of course, 21 plus. And anyone who orders an alcoholic beverage is required to show the waiter their ID. The rest of the restaurant, however, is child-friendly. We were serving breakfast and I was serving a table of two, a young girl who looked about 8 or 9 and her entitled mother, EM. However, this mom is more than entitled as she will be arrested by the end of this story. I go and take their drink orders after the hostess sits them down. The young girl gets an orange juice while the mother gets a water and a mimosa. I, of course, check the mom's ID and see that she's born in the early 80s, so she's good for mimosa. I let the bartender know that I need a mimosa to serve and I work on the orange juice for the child and the mother's water. Once I have all 3 drinks, I serve their table and take their meal orders. Everything seems to be going smoothly until I bring back their meals. As I bring back the plates, the mother screams at me. Entitled mother, "You served my child alcohol!" I know for a fact that cannot be true because I'm the one who made the juice and never even went behind the bar where the drinks are. Me? Ma'am, you must be mistaken. I didn't put any alcohol in the juice and I had my eyes on it until it reached your table. Entitled mother, well, then smell it. She handed me her child's glass and it did smell like alcohol. Me? Once again, I know that I did not put alcohol in your child's drink. Either someone did it while you weren't looking or you did it yourself, but the juice had no alcohol before it came to your table. The mom looked at me angrily and demanded to see my manager. Entitled mother, I'm going to sue you for giving my child alcohol. Bring me your manager. I get the manager and she gets both mine and the mom's side of the story. Security was even alerted because apparently the child had drunk a few sips of the alcohol. My manager, security, and I went and watched the security footage since both me and the mom swore we didn't put alcohol in the juice. Not only did we discover that I was innocent, we saw the mom, as soon as I had placed the glasses down and left, drink half of the child's juice and filled it back up with her mimosa. And then she instructed her child to drink some of it. The mother was arrested for giving her child alcohol and was given a lifetime ban from the restaurant. If she appears again, she will be immediately arrested again. Not how I planned my work morning, but at least it was amusing to watch an entitled mother get what she deserved. Edit, I was informed by someone who spoke to the kid that they didn't even want orange juice and hates orange juice. Her mom told her to order it just so that she could mix the drinks. The child originally wanted chocolate milk. You best believe I made sure she got her chocolate milk. This was 100% a ploy to either try and sue the restaurant for damages or get a free meal as an apology. One of the two. She probably had no idea there were cameras in the restaurant and just assumed that it would be a her word against theirs, so, you know what, let's just make this easy by giving us a free meal. That would be my assumption. I hope she learned her lesson for using her own child as a pawn and giving her own child alcohol in an attempt to, God knows what, honestly. I'm honestly just more shocked that it isn't, common assumption when you're in an establishment that they probably have security cameras somewhere in the building with eyes on you to make sure that shit like this can't just happen anymore. I mean, we live in a surveillance age. Like, seriously. Almost everything you do in public probably has a camera somewhere watching you. That's just how it is nowadays. Striking ad 1007. Parent used my credit and threatened me. At the beginning of 2023, my mother opened 2 lines of credit under my name without my knowledge, with Navy Federal and Amex, while I was a full-time student, using them to cover bills and other expenses. Much later, I discovered both credit cards when I signed up for Experian's credit report services and saw them under my name. After I confronted her, she promised, in both text messages and voice notes, that she would pay off all the cards she had opened in my name once she received her retirement money. When her retirement funds came in, she did pay off both cards. I then directed her to close the accounts since they were opened without my full awareness. However, an argument ensued when she refused to close them, and she even threatened to evict me if I filed an identity theft report or disputed any charges, which I also have documentation of. Now that I've graduated and am actively seeking full-time employment in a room to rent, I've noticed that she continues to rack up debt on these cards. Despite her earlier promises to pay them off, it's becoming increasingly clear that she may not follow through, and the debt is likely to keep growing. She justifies her actions by saying she needed the cards to manage bills while I was a student, which I understand. However, I have multiple messages where she explicitly agreed to pay them off, and all notifications and emails related to the credit accounts go directly to her, not me. As I plan to move out, I'm concerned about how to resolve this situation and free myself from the debt. Given the evidence I have of her promise to pay off the cards, what are my options for addressing this and protecting my financial future? This is an extremely tricky situation for OP to be in, because it's either A, they report this, get the police involved, get criminal matters involved and potentially send their mother to jail and burn that bridge, or they continue letting their mother potentially fuck over their life and potentially bar them from ever getting a loan, renting, or anything along those lines again. For at least, 6 to 7 years. At the end of the day, OP, your mother committed a crime. There's really no way to shake it to get a different result. Your mother stole your identity and used it for cards. And I understand that you're sympathetic towards that because she used those cards to pay for bills while you were a student, but at the same time, your mother proved that she's not a trustworthy person. You already gave her way more leeway than what was entirely necessary. I mean, you literally gave her a golden ticket of, hey, just get these paid off and we'll call it squared. You have it in writing. She went back on her promise, and now you're in a position where she could potentially tank you, and unless you do something about it, you could be in financial trouble for a fairly long time. In the end, it is OP's choice. But for you, the audience, if you found yourself in this situation, what would you do? Would you report your mother for identity theft? Calvisium Silvecium. My grandfather tried to manipulate, bribe, and force me into plastic surgery. Hey Reddit, my name is Edwards, 22 male, and this is a story about my controlling grandfather, 81 male, who spent years trying to force me into plastic surgery. This is going to be a long one, so buckle up. The problem with my ear. I was born with 2 slightly different ear shapes. One of them curls in a little, but it's not super noticeable unless you're staring at me from up close. It doesn't affect my life in any way except that earbuds fall out more easily. Kids teased me a bit, but whatever. It was just how I looked. My grandfather, however, did not see it that way. To him, I wasn't perfect, and that was unacceptable. Looking back, I realized he had been making comments about my ears since I was in preschool. But things really escalated when I turned 14, the age you can legally get plastic surgery in my former country. The manipulation begins. Practically every day, he'd remind me of my hideous and atrocious ear. At the time, I lived with my mom, 43 female, his daughter, and he lived in the apartment below us. This meant he had easy access to my life and never missed an opportunity to put me down. One day, after months of brainwashing, he took me to a fancy restaurant, just the two of us. Keep in mind, my mom and I were lower middle class, while he was more on the upper class side. I thought it was just a nice lunch, but when dessert arrived, he casually asked, "Do you want to finally get plastic surgery and look normal?" As always, I told him no. I liked how I looked. I was unique. His response? He silently stood up, paid the bill, yanked me by the arm, and dragged me to his car before I got to finish my cheesecake. He shoved me out in front of our apartment and drove off without another word. He was supposed to watch me that evening since my mom had to work late, but instead, he ignored me completely. I had no keys, so I sat outside for 6 hours until my mom came home. Luckily, it happened in April just before my birthday, so it was warm enough. The bribery phase. A few weeks later, he started talking to me again, acting like nothing had happened. One day, he even picked me up early from school and took me out to a restaurant, a cheaper one, but it had a carousel park nearby, which I loved. Strangely, for the first time in years, he didn't mention my ear. Not once. Instead, we just had fun. And over the next few weeks, he kept this up. Movies, museums, my favorite restaurants, no insults, no guilt tripping. It felt nice. Then, one day during a car ride home, he asked, "What do you want most? I'll buy it for you." A 14-year-old being asked an open-ended question like this? I was ecstatic. I asked for a gaming PC. Without hesitation, he drove me straight to the store and told me to pick out whatever I wanted, setting a budget of 2,000 euros. To me, that was an insane amount of money. I picked out my dream setup, practically shaking with excitement. And at the register, he turned to me and said, "Alrighty, pay up." I blinked. What? "Oh, you don't have the money? Well, I'll give it to you. On one condition. You will fix your ear." His voice was deep and demanding, loud but not yelling, but firm. I started crying and ran out of the store. I literally ran 5 kilometers home. When I told my mom, she was livid. She stormed downstairs, pounded on his door until he opened up, and then they argued for a long time. When she came back, she was in tears, but she told me I had done the right thing. The final attempt, kidnapping me to a surgeon. The next day, my grandfather acted completely normal. Again. He picked me up from school, was super friendly, and told me he had a surprise for me. On one hand, I knew he was up to something. On the other, he had taught me from a young age to use people for what they could offer. So, I got in my car, hoping for another fun day. Instead, he drove me to a private health clinic. Once inside, he introduced me to his friend, a plastic surgeon. They talked for a while before the surgeon took my measurements. Then, just before signing the documents, the surgeon turned to me and asked, "Which one of you wants this surgery today?" I was frozen. My grandfather immediately answered, "He does. He's just nervous." I pointed at him and held back tears. The doctor frowned. "Well, I can't perform surgery if the patient doesn't want it." My grandfather then lied and said he was my legal guardian because my parents were dead. He tried to fake documents to authorize the surgery, but thankfully, the doctor refused. At that point, I completely broke down, terrified that something had happened to my mom. My grandfather sighed, drove me home without saying a word again, and handed me off to my mom, who had no idea where I had been. That was the breaking point. We went low contact with him for a few years, or possibly he was punishing us by ignoring us, as he tended to do. The aftermath. Eventually, when I needed braces, he offered to help pay for them. We were tight on money, so my mom reluctantly agreed. He promised to cover half of the cost. In reality, he paid for half of my top braces, a quarter of the bottom, and not to mention how he didn't think it was necessary to pay 20 euros every 2 weeks for a couple of years for tightening. He still, every couple of months or so, tried to bribe me to get the surgery, or to accept money as a loan that I didn't need to pay back, or any other way he could think to get control over me. Even now, years later, he's still trying to control me. I moved to a different country after college to get away from him. I have no job yet, my savings are drained, and almost like he sensed it, he reached out last week. Do you want 10,000 euros? All you have to do is get this quick, simple surgery, and the money is yours. I didn't even reply. The family fallout. After the incident at the clinic, my grandfather went on a smear campaign, telling our extended family that my mom, his own daughter, had turned me against my loving and caring grandfather. Most of them believed him. My mom and I were banned from family gatherings, holidays, and celebrations. He even told us we had no right to use our own last name anymore. The only person who stayed on our side was my grandmother. May she rest in peace. Final thoughts. I know this was a lot, and I'm sorry for dumping it on you guys and gals, but I needed to tell someone. The last 2 therapists I saw sided with him, so I feel like I have no one unbiased to talk to. To be clear, I will never get this surgery. I will never take his money. Thanks for reading. If you have any questions or suggestions, I would love to hear your thoughts. Good for OP for sticking their guns, but also, you should probably look for new therapists or even report the ones you have, because that is not the response they should be having. Like, that feels very wrong. Again, very happy that OP did resist the grandfather's temptations, bribery, and even, at one point, potential kidnapping. But my biggest question is why the obsession with the folded ear? That seems like such a minor thing to be so bent up over. I mean, this man was willing to drop 10 grand in euros in order to essentially bribe his grandson to get this fixed. Why would it bother him this much? I suppose I'm just deeply curious on the psychological side of what would cause this kind of obsession to be in play. Part of me partially wonders if the grandfather actually believes this is the mother's doing, and he believed that he was trying to do the right thing by, oh, my grandson's being forced to keep his hideous ear by his evil mother, which would explain the Facebook post of, his mother turned my grandson against me. I've been nothing but loving and caring and trying to fix his hideous ear. Like, with that context, his behavior makes some sense. It's still definitely just cruel and unusual, and he's definitely just an abusive piece of bastard. Abusive piece of bastard. Okay, that's a new one. But still, I wonder if the grandfather believed he was trying to do something good for his grandson and thought that by bribery or perhaps by other means he could perhaps break the spell of the mother and, get his grandchild to have plastic surgery. But this is just me trying to find sense in the nonsense. So, I don't know. Take it with a tinfoil hat. What do you think? Lash of the Lambs 13. My mother forced me to take out her stitches before they were healed. Ugh. My mother, 54, recently had a minor medical procedure done. Nothing invasive, but she did require stitches afterwards. She decided to get the procedure done while she was on family responsibility leave due to the fact that I, 16 female, was going for a major surgery to my hip, which, fair enough. I understand the logic behind that. However, this is where the story actually starts. 4 days after her procedure, I was 5 days post-op at this stage, she demanded that I take out her stitches because they were bothering her. I told her no, that the stitches were not ready to come out yet, and that the wound had not healed enough. I had no formal medical training, but as someone who's had stitches and staples a lot myself, I could tell. Also, her stitches were in a place that would require me to kneel to remove them, and keep in mind, I was 5 days post-op after a major hip surgery, so I physically wasn't able to do that. I also told her I was uncomfortable removing her stitches because we only had a pair of nail clippers and a tweezer and nowhere we could safely do it. So fast forward one day, she begrudgingly listened to me for the time being, and I thought it meant the end of it. It was not. The next morning, I am 6 days post-op now. The stitches have been in for 5 days. Around 10 a.m., I am woken up by my mother screaming for me. Naturally, I rushed to my parents' bathroom where she was calling from. I walk in and my mother has ripped her stitches out with a pair of nail clippers and is bleeding. The thread from the stitches is still in her, but the wounds were ripped open. She immediately demands that I fix the situation, which, yeah, okay, I totally get it. I immediately start doing that, grabbing something to stop the bleeding and carefully removing the torn stitches with tweezers. This naturally requires that I force myself to kneel to do so and cause me severe pain, and my own wound started bleeding again too. Because, well, I was also supposed to be bed rest. So when I finish, I get back up, and this might be an overreaction from me, I don't know, but I blow up at her. I tell her that I told her not to try to take her own stitches out. I tell her that I explicitly warned her they were not ready to come out. I mean, I was pissed. She disregarded everything I said to her, refused to accept my answer when I told her no, and forced me to kneel down in front of her and hurt myself because she couldn't handle having stitches for another day. Never mind that I had a wound in my hip that went down to the bone. Never mind that I had staples spanning across my entire hip. She wanted her stitches out, so I had to take them out because it was the least I could do after she gave birth to me. I don't know if this truly belongs on here, but that felt kind of entitled to me. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. This is a bit beyond entitlement. This is borderline abuse, if not it is abuse. Yikes. Gotta love it's the least you could do for me since I gave birth to you. Like, goddamn. Yeah, you want the least I can do for you is taking your stitches out early so your wound reopens up, tremendously increasing the risk for infection. Yeah, it's the least I could do for you. Like, god damn. If your doctors give you a guide for when your stitches can or could be removed, you should probably follow that. Don't take them out early because they're irritating you. See what options you have to reduce the irritation before you resort to digging at your fucking stitches with nail clippers. Good God. And then as a cherry on top, subjecting your daughter, who just had hip surgery, to kneel down, reopening her wound to deal with your bullshit because you couldn't be patient. I really hope OP does everything in their power to recover, because this is not okay. Like, this is beyond, like, what really bothers me is OP is a child, and according to them, in their comment section, they're homeschooled, so they don't have as much access to the outside world as many other students or kids would, and on top of that, it really just tells me how much they've been accustomed to this kind of behavior from their mother, because they ended this with, I don't know, it feels kind of entitled to me. Like, this very much goes beyond entitlement, and I don't like throwing around the word abuse, but this is definitely walking into the territory of it. And if this is how the mom acts on just a regular basis, I feel like it probably goes deeper than what we see in this post. OP, please do what you can to stay safe. And if things get dangerous, you should definitely look up local resources to help you either get out of this situation or protect you in this situation, if it is bad beyond what you've posted here. Because there is a chance that your mother in this scenario is just extremely cranky from the surgery and making really stupid and unreasonable decisions. But if this kind of behavior extends both before and after the surgery, then please be careful and be safe. Posted by a deleted user. My mom expects my husband to reach out to her for her medical procedure. My mom is getting a hip replacement tomorrow, but she always has medical procedures done. It happens pretty often. My husband and I are apart as we wait for our marriage visa to come through. I'm very lucky I get to see him 3 times a year in his home country of South Korea, and I'm seeing him in a few weeks. From the previous times my mom has gotten procedures done, she always complains that my husband doesn't reach out to her. Last summer, she was in the hospital due to a stomach issue, and she asked if my husband knows. I'm sorry, but why would I tell him about my mom being sick to her stomach and in the hospital? I told her no, and it's her private medical business. She then freaked out and claimed I'm embarrassed over her. I'm sorry, but what will he do about this? He's not even in the same country as us. I was also in the ER last summer with high blood pressure issues. Of course, my husband knew, and he was supportive through phone calls, FaceTime, and texts. But he's in a different country, there's seriously nothing he can do. My mom told me just now that my brother's girlfriend wished her good luck on the procedure, then complained that my husband didn't reach out to her. My husband did say to me over the phone that he wishes her good luck. I told her just that, and she claims that I probably didn't even tell him. She also said, "He's doing this all wrong." And I said, you can either take the best wishes he's sending your way or continue to keep whining. She didn't say anything after that, so I'm hoping that's the end of that. But I don't know if I'm being rude and if my husband is wrong. I just don't know why every time she has a medical procedure that she wants my husband to know and judges him if he doesn't reach out to her. I'm very private about my medical history and if I'm in the hospital or going to the doctor. I don't want everyone to know, but I guess we're different in that sense. I just hate the fact that she's criticizing my husband over what I think is the dumbest reason. Is this normal behavior? Because my parents don't do this, but this feels very attention-seeking and weird to me, but like, is this something normal to do? Because on one hand, you have OP's sibling where their partner does this and wishes them luck and everything's good to go. But then on OP's hand, it's like, yeah, my partner, I guess, wishes you luck, but like, it's a medical procedure and I'm respecting your privacy. Because like, on one hand, I could honestly see this as like, hey, your brother's girlfriend is wishing me luck before the surgery, but your husband doesn't. Does your husband not care about me? Does your husband not like me? Have I done something wrong? Like, I could maybe see an argument for that, but according to OP, some of the behavior is just very attention-seeking, especially with the "he's doing this all wrong" comment. Implies that she's specifically looking for some kind of reaction or some kind of attention from her husband to validate her, and it just seems off to me. But hey, maybe it just seems off to me because, like, my parents aren't like this, and maybe this is normal in other circles, and this is just OP's mom trying to keep the family close together, and unfortunately it just comes off as being very attention-seeking. Or, tinfoil hat theory, the mom secretly has a crush on OP's husband and really wants him to know every detail about her life to secretly slide in and steal him from her. That's a real tinfoil hat theory right there. that one's actually an honest-to-God joke tinfoil hat theory that I don't... Yeah, I might actually kind of stand behind it. But in all seriousness, what do you all think? Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.